Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Fabian for Liberty. You can check out fabianforliberty.com, also fabiancalvo.me for information on myself and geopolitics, entrepreneurship, and economics. You know, if anyone doubted the fact that Obama, John Kerry, Samantha Powers, and this cabal in Washington and their intentions for the global chaos that they're working on creating, I think all you really need to do is look at the headlines of today. Now, for almost a year now, or at least 9 months, I have been talking about, well, for longer than that, I've been talking about a greater regional war that we would see. Many of you, I know, agree that's not necessarily anything new, but how it would go down, I think, is something that all of us kind of have maybe differing opinions on. You know, when I look at the Middle East today and I see the borders being completely redrawn as the West continues to fund ISIS, Al-Qaeda in the Middle East, Syria, and Iraq. As I see Libya overran by Al-Qaeda now, where the capital of Libya, Tripoli, was actually taken over by the Islamists on Sunday. I see a complete collapse of the government of Libya now, where the Egyptians are planning military intervention into Libya, their neighbor, to avoid the Islamist radicals from spilling into Egypt. We see that the West has in essence supported the destabilization taking place, but it's not just there. They've also supported the destabilization in the Ukraine. I've talked about length for months now regarding the IMF coup that basically took place in Kiev, and how the West is really pushing Russia, I believe, into a global war, the likes of something we maybe had never seen before. Again, I hope I'm wrong about this, but let me just read you a few of the headlines that I think were telling today. American military is drilling in Ukraine. Russia is conducting nuclear war exercises. Navy destroyer enters the Black Sea. Paris suspends delivery of the warships it was planned on sending to Russia. Hagel sounds alarm on American military superiority. China-Russia closing technology gap. Let's take a couple of those at a time. For some time now, we know that the CIA has been involved in training the Ukrainian rebels. In fact, new podcast link is down below. I break all this down. And they've been involved in training the Ukrainian military. Remember, just 6 months ago, the Ukrainian military basically made the Baghdad or the Iraqi military, made them look like a legion of Navy SEALs. Okay, remember, they were giving up their tanks, they were surrendering the army bases. But that's changed. It's changed because the belligerents in the West that want war, they have basically told the Ukrainian people now that, look, we have you hostage via the debt from the IMF. Do what we say, or we're basically going to make things much worse for you. They've also sent in military operators and so-called advisors to go in and basically better train and equip the Ukrainian military to move into the eastern Ukraine, claim Russia's invading, claim Russia is launching motor attacks from inside of Russia, make all of these claims, but yet there's no proof of any of it. Now, do I believe the Russians have aided the rebels on some level? Yes. I mean, I think most people would see that taking place. To say that they're completely just detached from what's happening in eastern Ukraine, I think is just not a fundamental, it's just not a truthful statement, nor an accurate one. But to say that they're now, launching tanks into the Ukraine, there was a lot of evidence or a lot of stories that came out a few days ago about this, last week about this. But where is the real evidence? I don't know. I do know the real evidence that we can speak about today are the provocations taking place at the hands of the West, i.e. NATO meeting in Wales this weekend. Now they're announcing that basically they're going to send in more troops, more military, U.S. military troops into Ukraine, into Western Ukraine, more weapons, more armament, more money, all in basically creating, and I got to tell you, this is so reminiscent of World War I. It's exactly really what's going on. And the world has known world wars for many years, not just World War I, not just World War II. In fact, today is the anniversary of the Treaty of Paris. Many of you may say, well, what is the Treaty of Paris? Well, the Treaty of Paris actually ended the Revolutionary War between England and America, because it wasn't just England against America. It was England against America, against France, against Mysore, I believe, in India. It was against a lot of other players that were involved. And when Washington defeated, when Washington basically won in Yorktown, the final battle that basically ended the Revolutionary War, the Treaty of Paris wasn't signed. Ben Franklin was one of the people who was sent there to help get it all resolved and signed. Spain was also involved in it. So all the European players were involved in this world war. That didn't happen until a couple years after the defeat of Cornwallis in Yorktown. The point is that world wars are things that happen. Many times they're financed by global banking interests, as I did the video yesterday on 67% of private or public U.S. debt is now held by foreigners, foreign banks, foreign countries. And I'm looking at the lay of the land and what's going on, and I see the crux of all this. The reason the U.S. can have NATO and continue to have the West, in Europe particularly, continue with the naked aggression against the Middle East, against Russia, is only because of the US dollar system. That's it, in my opinion. Could be wrong, but I think I'm right. And as we see Russia and China advance militarily, as we see them advance economically, we see that the PMI index came out the other day, the manufacturing index, where the US is doing just fine. Russia is actually coming back up after the sanctions hit them a little bit, but it doesn't seem like the sanctions are stopping them at all. But who's doing the worst? Well, it's Europe. They've been hit really hard by the sanctions against Russia. And I did a video a couple weeks, about a month ago, where I was talking about how the sanctions against Russia would cripple the EU. I was ridiculed and mocked, made fun of. Apparently that is happening just like I said it would happen. Now, again, this isn't just me saying this. Other people were saying that as well. I certainly don't have a crystal ball. I do know history and I am a thinker. And I can tell you that as somebody who's read at least 25 plus books on World War I, that there are so many similarities between not just the lack of leadership that we saw in World War I, but all of these alliances and treaties that were being formed prior to the war breaking out, the intelligence agencies that were spying on all these different countries, the Germans on the Americans on everybody else, England on everybody else. It is so reminiscent of exactly what we have seen in the past. The question is, who blinks first? Who stops in this really what it is a like a race of, it's like a chicken playing chicken. Who veers the car away from the other oncoming car first, or do they just both collide? Love to hear your feedback on this, but certainly events in the Ukraine are progressing, are getting more tense day by day now. And look for something from this Wales event, this NATO event, where now they're becoming brazen and they're literally sending troops into the Ukraine. I have serious suspicions about the people that are running the Ukrainian government. I think they shot down a Malaysian airliner to blame it on the Russians to start a war. I think that they would kill a bunch of U.S. troops to blame it on the Russians. The point is that when you have levels as tense as these, that's when they're prone for false flag terror attacks, and that's what we could potentially see start off a much larger regional war that I pray that I'm wrong about. I hope that's avoided. But I look at the people that are running the country today, and they are so psychopathic that you cannot put anything behind them. And it's not just the people running the country, because they're not really in charge. It's actually them, but more so the international bankers desperate to transition from the dollar to another type of global currency, but do it their way instead of doing it too quickly where it can just completely unravel and blow everything up. I'm Fabian Calvo, Fabian for Liberty. Love to hear your feedback on this video. Thanks for watching. I'm out.